Good evening from the United Nations University Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability, or UNUIAS in Tokyo. My name is Jerome. I am pleased to welcome all of you joining us to our second AI Learning Lab webinar. Today's session is entitled AI in Action, Advancing Research for the SDGs, and this is co-hosted by our partners from the Futures of Higher Education and Artificial Intelligence Action Group under the framework of the UN Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, or HESI. Before we dive into the presentations, let me just share a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded and will be made publicly available on the UN HESI website following the event. For smooth running of the webinar, please keep your microphones muted during the presentations to avoid any background noise. We also encourage you to introduce yourselves or say hello in the chat. If you have any questions or comments during the presentations, feel free to also send them via the chat function. Later on in the session, we will have an interactive discussion, and at that point, you will be allowed to unmute your microphones. Finally, we value your feedback. At the end of the session, please take a moment to complete our short survey to help us improve future iterations of the webinars. So welcome again, and we will begin with a brief background of the AI Learning Lab webinar series. This series is organized by our very dedicated partners from the UN HESI Action Group on the futures of AI and higher education. The action group has 4 thematic pillars: AI in research and development, AI in teaching and learning, AI in university management and administration, and AI ethics, safety, and inclusivity in higher education. The themes of the webinar sessions are based on these 4 pillars, all with the common objectives: to share knowledge, to highlight our partners' initiatives, and to explore critical issues at the intersection of AI, higher education, and sustainability. The implementation team for AI in research and development is led by Dr. David Steingart of St. Joseph's University, who also spearheaded the organization of this webinar. Today's discussion will include how AI-enabled tools can strengthen research methodologies and how journals and academic publishers can support sustainable and socially impactful AI research. To begin the main session, I am pleased to turn the floor to Dr. David Steingart, who will be moderating the succeeding sessions. David, over to you.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are on planet Earth. We have at least a 12-hour difference between Philadelphia and Tokyo. So welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today is the culmination of not just a lot of preparation, but a lot of putting the AI conversation in the context of research and development. So before we get started, for a broader introduction, I would like to introduce Jean-Louis Park, who has been fantastic in organizing at the highest level all of these groups around the futures of AI in higher education.
Thank you very much, David, for the nice introduction. Good evening, everyone from Tokyo. Thank you very much for joining us today for the second session of the AI Learning Lab webinar series. This webinar is organized by the Action Group on Futures of Higher Education and AI, as just Jerome and David introduced. And this initiative is under the United Nations Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, or HESI. On behalf of the United Nations University Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability, or UNUIAS, and our partner, UNESCO International Institute for Higher Education, I'm really delighted to welcome you all to this AI Learning Lab webinar that is exploring critical issues at the intersection of artificial intelligence, higher education, and sustainability. At the very recent United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP30, which was held in Belém, Brazil last month, AI was everywhere, front and center. For example, on the very first day of the conference, artificial intelligence was highlighted as one of the key themes in the agenda, followed by a launch of the AI Climate Institute. And also AI for Climate Action Award was announced there. So whether your view on AI is on the optimistic side or pessimistic side, or confused or deciding side, AI's role in addressing climate change and sustainability is already here and shaping our future. So our aim today is to move beyond this debate and deepen our understanding and spark meaningful dialogue on the practical side question of how. So this webinar focuses on how AI can contribute to advancing research for the SDGs and sustainable development with concrete cases from universities and insights from journal editors and publishers. So our hope is that by the end of this webinar, you will leave with fresh ideas on how research on AI for social good can be conceived, implemented, and published to advance both human and planetary well-being. On side note, I have good news and bad news. So which one would you like to hear first? So bad news is that Dr. David Steingart, who is the leader of AI in the research and development team, the team organizing this webinar, is leaving us. Good news is that he will continue and even extend his contribution and role in UN's dialogue in AI in higher education, as in his new role as the head of the Principles for Responsible Management Education, or PRIME, under the UN Global Compact. So please join me congratulating him on his new appointment. At the same time, on behalf of the HESI, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. David Steingart for his leadership on the inception of this AI research and development team and its development so far. Most of all, we really thank him for agreeing to organize and coordinate this webinar, despite his busy transition of the jobs between his academic job and now his great UN role. David has been really instrumental in expanding the partnership and outreach of this action group. So thank you very much, David. Finally, I would like to thank everyone, all of our attendees, for being part of this conversation today. And your engagement is what makes this session really impactful. So please join us. And I would like to really invite you to share your questions, insights, experiences, and make this conversation as interactive as possible during the discussion. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the session. Thank you.
Jean-Louis, that was a very gracious introduction and helping me understand what is happening to me with my multiple roles. And I can just say to anyone out there on the webinar of thinking about getting involved with any of the various and important United Nations initiatives in research, in AI, and just about anything, just start, make a friend, volunteer, engage, share your work, and you will just flourish because there's a lot of opportunities to express yourself. And speaking of opportunities, I wanted to acknowledge the main group in our implementation team for AIRED, as it is affectionately acronymized. And when the different groups were being formed in Futures of Higher Education and Artificial Intelligence, there was a distillation, if you will, of what are the most important topics that higher education and should be addressing in terms of AI. And I like, Jean-Louis, the way you said that human well-being and planetary, planetary well-being and human flourishing. And essentially, we've anchored this group, as you should, into the Sustainable Development Goals, which give a unassailable normative foundation for how we should work with each other to maintain a no one left behind prosperous and sustainable world. So with that context, I'm going to give you a little bit of the broader context of where the research and the policy and the impact are interacting. This is basic calculation. What does it look like when we turbocharge our desire to do good through sustainable development goals with AI? And Jean-Louis, I'm glad you gave that kind of précis about what happened at COP. And this is everywhere. AI is becoming, is it overhyped in terms of the transformative effects? Unclear, but clearly it's already starting to be used, as you said, for optimistic purposes. And there are some real issues which we'll address throughout the webinar. So just quite simply, this table is taken from the book chapter below, and I recommend this book. It is from 4 different prime regions of the 17 regions, authors and editors. And Francesco, who will be presenting after me, will go into more detail about some of the substantive, ethical, and performative frameworks that we develop. But as you can see, AI can basically power any type of good that we need to be doing. And I wanted to share just I think the largest context we have about what is trying to guide the research, practice, and policy of AI. There is, in the SDG group within UN, there is a specific focus. At the UN as a body has 2 different large scale policy approaches, and the idea is to set the ground so other nation states and even corporations can adopt. So we have the Global Digital Compact, and then the Pact for the Future. And if there's young people, students, or if you're young at heart, I like this idea, once in a generation opportunity. If you were conscious during the internet revolution, that was a big deal. Electricity on this planet, which is still not distributed evenly around the world, was a big deal. And it is fair to say that AI is of this magnitude. I like the fact that this is not just an advisory position of the United Nations. This is actually going to be one of its pillars for grounding humanity, so we can wrestle AI to our advantage. And I'll give you a couple different countries, regions, EU. There is no governmental body or policymaking body that is not wrestling with this. Corporate boards, higher ed. It's finals week here at St. Joseph's University. Are students using AI to complete their semesters? And is that a good thing? So the EU, just a few days ago, just recently, has decided, and I want you to see this theme, decided to streamline and consolidate some of the regulations, because part of what is happening, there's a tension, and I'm a business ethics professor by training and heart, I suppose, between an anything goes open highway to do anything you like with AI in the advancement of technology and commerce and profit, and tension about guardrails. China, and I like the way that China's policy is directly connected to the 2 policies I showed you earlier in the United Nations proper. And then being an American in America right now, This is actually the foundation of how the United States of America is dealing with AI. And I want you to notice there's a direct connection to economics and military. It is now the case that economic advantage and military advantage are all about artificial intelligence. So America is putting that objective first in terms of opening up and winning, as it says. So this is it's a nice graphic, but the more unpleasant part of the reality. And this I put the reference here. This is a practical ethics center at Oxford, one of the many centers that Francesco has interaction with on the campus. And it's the idea that that which helps you, this comes from the medical world, can also hurt you. The simple example is the invention of the combustion engine. Fossil fuel combustion engine was a miraculous transformation of society. And now we are dealing with trying to put that genie of doom back in the bottle, if I may. So, what does that look like in terms of the research going on, and how cognizant are we of these potential problems? And there's lots of excellent research, and that's sort of the frame that is the role of what higher education and the research arm can do to help us be aware and get some substantive approach to working on social and environmental impacts. This is a great article, very clearly laid out. And then if you haven't been on the archive from Cornell, they publish quality papers that are very timely and advanced. It doesn't have the same sort of peer review. You don't have to wait 2 years to see a paper. And they have really good focus, sub-focus on AI ethics governance and what you see here. And again, there isn't an aspect of risk in everything that is happening. So I've been very speedy in my introduction because I want to do two things. I want to make sure everybody has ample time to present, and then I want to have a robust discussion in our discussion period. So I will now turn it over to my great colleague, Francesco. And Francesco, for those of you who are not computer science people and are interested in AI and are maybe mystified, I would say make a new friend. Find somebody who is actually a computer scientist and befriend them, because that will give you the other dimension of the AI conversation, because it is both very technical and unfortunately very mystical. So with that introduction, Francesco, please.
Hello. Hi, David. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully everything works. Can you see my screen? Perfect. All right. So thank you, David, once again for your kind introduction. As David said, I'm Francesco. I'm one of the co-authors with David on a paper that we published about using AI for SDG. You can find the paper by scanning the QR code there if you want. Yeah, as David said, I am a computer scientist by trade. So undergrad, master, PhD, postdocs, everything in CS. And I try to go over how AI can actually help SDGs with my own, perspective, coming from a more, let's say, technical side. Yeah, once again, the title is Advancing Sustainable Development Through AI for SDG. Perfect. So before starting and going into the nitty-gritty, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what David said, but I think it's very important. So I'm going to quickly explain to you what is the AIR team is and what is his focus, his agenda. And let's start from the basic thing. So the name AIRD comes from AI and Research and Development Team. So it's basically what it says to be. It's a team within SE that tries to actually implement and provide solution in the AI field with respect to SDG. And so its role is actually well defined in trying to advance higher education research in AI for SDG. So we're trying to provide actual practical solution in using AI for SDG once again. The vision is to use AI not only to make profit as most of the companies do right now. Sorry, my tone. I'm going to be quite skeptical about AI, being someone that's working on it for 10 years. So I'm going to be a little bit cynical today. But the vision of this group is to actually drive change, change for the good, whether it's equity, prosperity, environmental stewardship, the usual very interesting stuff that with SDG we can actually claim and try to better in this world. And the mission is to do so by promoting higher education driven AI solution. So we actually think that AI solution that comes from uh, academia might actually be a driving force with respect to this kind of mission. So trying to actually better the world rather than making profit with AI. So how do we plan to do this is basically through a very simple yet very efficient loop, which is trying to connect research, policy creation, and practice. So we envision this cycle where AIRD function as a global team spread across the world. And basically following this dynamical cycle allows to, enrich research with policy making, making sure that research follows standards and so that the results can be put into practice and this practice can inspire new research and so on and so forth. And this is a very nice Ouroboros that feeds up in itself to try and make AI more instrumental for the global good. How do we plan to actually do this in more practice is to actually create rigorous policies and principles by following 5 what we call contributions. So 5 very well-defined principles. The idea is these principles, I'm not going to go into details of each one of them, but they actually try to curate open access knowledge so that everyone can access the same kind of level of knowledge and develop their own solution for the betterment of their own environment, develop measurement and benchmarking for AI solutions. This is very important because especially in CS research, what happens is that most of the time the solutions that we've been proposed are kind of tailored to satisfy some benchmarks rather than actually making an impact. So we believe that developing something that allow us to actually understand if a tool is properly working or is actually doing what it claims on a unified and global level, it's very, very relevant. And finally, what another very important thing is, alongside with policy, it's governance and ethical framework. There's a lot of talk about ethics and AI, of course, and this is a very long and broad topic, which I'm not going to cover. But as all of you know, it's very important that we define structure and ethical rules that AI tools needs to follow, whether it comes from data, training, the way you use human to develop this technology, the way you use environmental resources, all kind of things. So we also believe in this kind of definition that to be instrumental to develop practical AI for SDG tools. And yes, all of these will culminate in a production of articles or policy that everyone can access and can get inspiration from or can comment or critique about it. So this is the open access policy applied to AI tool as well. So the idea is, once again, we're trying to use AI for SDGs. This is not a novel idea. Actually, it's been studied for a long time. And before going into details, let's provide a definition. So this definition is not my own. I stole it from Luciano Floridi, which is a very prominent figure in the field. And while you can read it on the screen, it basically says that AI, is AI is supposed to be a tool that helps mitigating something that's harm to humans or to the environment, enabling social changes and developments. So we need to think about what we're doing with AI right now and all the solution, and actually ask ourselves, is this bettering the human condition while preserving or enabling more preferable social or environmental situation? So while this is somewhat trivial to most of us, I think that reflecting on this kind of things, this kind of sentences, really hammers down the point that we are not too concerned about this aspect right now. I mean, not us, but the world is much more concerned on other aspects of AI, which is innovation and the race for being the best production in AI tools. So to enhance, for example, profit or economic capacity. So once again, I just left this sentence here just to hammer down the idea. Okay, another topic that most of the people around the globe, the world don't really understand is artificial intelligence. As David said, this tool has been used by the media. It's been mystified. It's kind of mysterious. It's like magic nowadays, and no one really knows what's going on unless you've been working on it for like 10 years. So I just wanted to give you a quick overlook from a data scientist perspective of what is AI. And we're going to start by talking about computer science. Computer science is, as you may know, the field that studies information through computers, right? Algorithmic information, basically whatever concerns computation is studied within computer science, and try to basically find mathematical definition that fits into a machine that allow you to compute any kind of problem. Within CS, computer science, there is a field which is artificial intelligence. Okay, and artificial intelligence is a very, very old field. It started in the 56 with John McCarthy, and it's been going on for over 70 years. And this is a very broad field. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand that artificial intelligence is not only natural language processing. So the idea of taking natural language and creating something out of it, but is much more. In particular, artificial intelligence contains, so it's not only machine learning, this kind of topic that you've heard about a lot. And machine learning refers to the subfield of artificial intelligence that is interested in creating algorithms that learns over time. Okay. And within machine learning, there's an even more specialized group, which is deep learning. So it's learning done through neural network. So when you think about artificial intelligence, most of the time you think about neural network. I just wanted to show you that neural network are just a small part of AI. And so we need to be a little careful when it comes to nomenclature. And within deep learning, we have generative AI. And we have tools such as ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever you want to use. So this is just a quick clarification on the term AI from a computer scientist perspective. So when we talk about AI, most of us in chatting with friends, we refer to ChatGPT as AI. But AI is much more, and it can be much more, right? Because all the faults of ChatGPT can be addressed with some other tools or with some other techniques. We need to take into account this wider perspective on AI. With that said, I'm going to fall into this trap. And from now on, whenever I'm going to talk about AI, I'm going to refer to generative AI. So ChatGPT-like tool that allow you to quickly process natural language and obtain some kind of response or solution from it. And when it comes to this type of AI, especially when applied to SDG, we have, as David mentioned before, a duality. So we have we have a lot of potential, but also we have a lot of risk. There is a study, I think in the bottom of the slide, which basically, went through all the SDGs and how they can be affected by AI, and found out that AI can be a very powerful enabler for 134 targets of the SDG, 79% of them, and can provide a very good and very valuable insights and advancement in those fields. But it can also very much destroy 59 of those. So create very dramatic situation that can bring negative effects into the world. As David mentioned, the most classical example is the environmental impacts of these models that really are taking a toll on our world and resources. So this is why we think that this duality is very important, but we need to be aware of it. And David and I and other people at Earth, we basically started trying to define way of taking AI, encapsulating within known concepts, and try to understand if this tool that we're trying to develop or we're trying to use is actually a positive change or a negative change. And this is what I'm going to be talking about in the next slide. Just for completeness, I'm going to show some examples on how AI has been used in a positive way um, for SDG. So we have the SDG 1, no poverty, and an example, some AI platform that allows for microloans to enrich local communities. Similarly, for zero hunger, we have that AI has been used to augment soil and develop more knowledge about the weather, so we can enrich crops and stuff like that. For the tree, we have that to help good weather and well-being. We have the AI has been widely used, for example, in medicine. And one example that comes to mind is, of course, the machine learning models that allow to detect anomalies in patient tests very early in the pipeline. And finally, we have quality of education, where AI can provide automated tool for students or teacher, and that allow them to better understand materials, slides, so on and so forth. I'm going to use a specific example in what comes next, and this is the SDG 3. And the AI role in this SDG, so for good health and well-being, is diagnostic support in radiology. So there is a lot of tools that allow you to better understand what's going on with images, specifically from CT scan, if you want, or other tools like MRI. Doesn't really matter. And this is done through machine learning models that allow you to basically pinpoint things that shouldn't be there. Okay, so it uses statistics to say, wait a minute, this kind of pixel color shouldn't be in that position. That might be a tumor or something else. I'm going to use these throughout the next slides to show how we can apply our policy. And as I was saying, the main core of our paper is to provide ways of evaluating AI tools so we can evaluate their actual impact. And to do so, we developed two sets of evaluation criteria. The first set is within the real world impact, and that's how we called it. And the first question is about if this solution that we're developing does a meaningful difference in the world. And in the case of the early detection tumor, for example, yes, of course, because having an AI tool that allows patients to find doctors to find disease in patients, it's really helpful for obvious reason. Then we went already to the second criterion, which is scalability and replicability. And the idea is, can this tool actually be employed across the world? Even on a poorer communities or a different kind of environments. And this already gets tricky because being a machine learning model means that you actually depend on computation. And as David mentioned, electricity and computational power is not equally distributed over the world. So already we get a little bit out of track here. Is this solution viable in long term? And yes, because AI models, specifically machine learning models, are this amazing capability of continuously learning new stuff. So we can actually train when something happened that we discovered that the model is no longer efficient or no longer valid. We can apply more training to it and make it more efficient for the new problems at end. And does this contribute to one of the core principles of SDGs? And yes, of course, this contributes for obvious reason. I'm not going to go into super detail. Of course, I'll be happy to reply any questions later on. Does this reduce inequality? And yes, it does. Specifically in system with private healthcare, in a state system, this allows patients to have cheaper diagnosis, faster diagnosis. So you actually allow people that doesn't have economic availability to be able to access diagnosis that may actually change their lives and maybe save them even. And finally, if the solution is the solution local, can be built locally and maintained. And in this case, no, this solution is very complicated and needs a lot of resources for building. So already we have a major flaw. This solution depends on private sector. So while this can actually be taken care by government, maybe the idea is that to create some kind of this kind of solution, you need a lot of resources. The second criteria that we envision, oh yeah, I didn't change the word, is the ethical criteria. Sorry, there's an error in the slide. And the idea is that we want to make sure that the data and the approach are ethical and non-biased, to make sure that the solution we develop doesn't perpetuate bias or problems in ethical problems. The idea is we test if the model and the data itself are correct, non-biased, distributed, general, and so on. And the question we ask ourselves are about data quality and integrity. If the data are ethical, in this case, they are because they come from hospital. If the data that we obtain doesn't infringe any human right, and in this case it doesn't, the data have been taken, anonymized, and the patients were asked if they wanted to contribute to the study. Is the bias are the bias mitigated? And this is an interesting point because no, bias is not mitigated in the sense that yes, there is no bias in sex, age, or ethnicity, but there is a very strong bias which is not bias. That, for example, when a doctor sees a suggestion by AI, it would take the suggestion rather than interrogating himself or themselves even more. So this is a kind of a problem that we need to address in this solution. Is this transparent? And no, no machine learning model are ever going to be transparent just because of the way they work internally. So these has to be treated as a black box. And is it safe? Yes, once again, except for the nudging. And finally, is this reproducible and robust? And no, because this depends on training data. So depending on the training data, you have different results.
Francesco, can I jump in?
Yes.
Yes, we need to kind of move along a little bit. So maybe
Okay.
maybe you can
I'm
wrap
done.
it up, please, because I know you're almost done because we wrote this together.
Yeah, I'm done. So sorry, the time slipped off. But yeah, so the overall idea is that once you take all of these criteria into consideration, you kind of have a better analysis of the tool, and you kind of can get your own takes, and you can you can try to reflect on the limitation and pros and cons, and also maybe try to think that machine learning is not a solution. As I highlighted here, there is much more to AI than the standard models that we are seeing today that might benefit the UN or the world altogether. So yeah, I'm gonna finish just by saying that we are there trying to develop policies, tools, and even more, ethical boundaries to develop proper tools that can make a difference and they can be ethically and globally useful. Right, that's it for me. Sorry for the extra time. Thank you.
Well, I think you just committed yourself to the second follow-up webinar, Francesco. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
As we're moving along here, Francesco got into more detail of what I was talking about in terms of the context of AI and doing good. And you saw throughout both of our presentations connections to research. And that's where we're going to kind of funnel in now for the remainder of the presenters about, well, what does the research look like in the context of academic publishing and scholarly communications. So, Simon, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. And so hello to everybody. I'm actually talking to you from a conference, and I've just been moved out of one room because there was going to be lunchtime and I thought it was free. So I'm just been hastily moved into another room. But I'm actually attending and a publishing integrity conference today. So it's been quite interesting to hear what's been going on, and I'm going to try and funnel some of that into the talk today, which is about how AI can advance the SDGs to innovative publishing programs while maintaining research and publishing integrity. And if you were just to read this without really thinking about it too much, you may think that all of that should align very well. But what I hope to show is that on the one hand, yes, it can align very well, but there are some major hurdles that we're going to have to overcome, and in some ways, things actually work against each other. So, without further ado, let me get started. So, just a quick introduction. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at a small US company called Cabbles. I've been working in academic publishing for over 20 years, and I've actually been using and researching into the SDGs for 8 years. Way back in 2017, when I worked for an academic publisher, we were actually using the SDGs to identify where funding was going when we were looking at our open access program. So I've been very familiar with certainly with how the SDGs and have been involved in publishing and research for quite a while. I have been lucky enough to publish some articles, many blogs and other content on this particular topic. And my real interest is actually on the research integrity side of things. The company I work for do a lot of work around predatory journals and predatory publishing, which some of you will probably have heard of. I've actually written a book about that called The Predatory Effect. So the idea of using AI to help researchers, both in terms of research integrity issues and the SDGs, is something that I'm very much interested in, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, it's just over 6 years ago to the day that I first met David at a business school conference, and he was talking about the work that he'd done. So I'm going to kind of praise and what the work that David has done in the past, because he's the real pioneer here in terms of aligning AI with the SDGs. So I saw a talk by him where he was using the SDGs as a framework to understand the extent to which business school curricula were aligned to the SDGs, and he was using AI to identify that. And my question to him at the end of the talk was, "Have you thought about applying this to journals?" And in the last 6 years, broadly speaking, we've been looking at how we can use AI, and obviously as the AI technology improves, we've been able to do this better and better. How we can identify the extent to which that engagement between research and the SDGs has happened. We came up with a metric called SDG impact intensity, and we've been able to apply that to a number of different things. So one of the things that I was particularly interested in is in business and management, along with every other area, every other discipline of research, then there are lists of journals that are the top, or the so-called top journals. But what we wanted to test was that, well, for example, in business and management, are those top journals, are they really the top journals when you look at it through the lens of SDGs? And lo and behold, the top journals at that stage were actually very bad at representing SDGs in the research they published. Other journals, some of which you can see there, some you may have heard of, some you may not have heard of, but they were actually much more focused on the SDGs. And as a result, the research that they were publishing was much more relevant, useful to the whole program regarding the SDGs. And it wasn't just that the results were close. What we found was that in the group of journals that we tested against 50 of the top business and management journals, there was literally no comparison. Almost all of the so-called top journals performed worse than those that traditionally had an SDG type focus. And I think being able to use AI in this way I think was really instructive because it wasn't AI in and of itself that was important here. It was what an AI enabled us to do, because you simply wouldn't be able to get this kind of broad understanding of the coverage of SDGs. And in other way, you may be able to do a survey, or you may be able to do some kind of text check, but AI really provided a massive step up in our ability to do this. And it not only did it prove our hypothesis, but it enabled us and enabled a wider discussion of how you view research through different lenses. Because it's pretty stark that if you do look at research through an SDG type lens, then you get very, very different results than if you look at it through the more traditional lens that was based on citations or other more traditional metrics. Now, the good news is that David and I, in the latter bit of the research we've done, have seen an improvement in that set of journals that we originally looked at. So I don't think we're going to take any credit for this, but we are very pleased to see that original set of 50 journals are now much more engaged with SDG topics. And I think what this tells us is, again, it's less about those particular journals maybe getting switched on to the SDGs more, although I think that's a factor. I think it's more that those journals are perhaps slower to adopt new perspectives. The SDGs have only been around since 2015. It's still the environmental issues, sustainability issues, even though that for many of us, we've probably been aware of them for a long time. I think traditional academic publications do take a long time. The culture takes a long time to change. So I think that's perhaps part of the reason why the more traditional journals, and a lot of these top journals have been around a long time, they've probably taken a little bit longer to adapt. But the good news is that they have. So that's the AI and SDGs. So you can see from that it's a pretty positive story there that AI can enable us to do quite a lot of really interesting work with the SDGs and get us to understand how the SDGs are represented in research publications. Now, if we throw research integrity into the mix, what do we see? Now, the problem is that whilst each one of those three topics of AI, SDGs, research integrity, in the scholarly communications industry that I work, they are, if you like, the holy trinity of talking points. The conference that I'm at the moment, conferences that I've been at in 2025, those three issues have probably been the three main topics. Now, some of them are not related to each other, but a lot of them are. And that increasing what I would call a symbiosis is both a challenge and also, I think, probably an opportunity. So if you look at how AI helps us with, for example, just the SDGs, then as we've seen, it helps us with research and discoverability. We've seen a lot of development of new tools that enable you, to example, to match the research that you're doing with the most relevant journal, which saves authors hours in terms of understanding. They probably know which SDG areas they're working in, but probably not so au fait with the journal that they need to submit to. So AI can help bring those two things together. Just the sheer amount of data that you can now handle with AI obviously helps, because a lot of the research being done through the SDGs is quite data heavy. And I think that it should at least be able to provide a more efficient publishing process, in that if the increasing adoption of AI means that you're able to input that into perhaps where people or where other systems have been in place, AI can help it to be much quicker. So there's a good story there in terms of AI. In terms of research integrity, that kind of integration with workflows can make things much more efficient. There is an exponential increase currently in the number of articles that are being submitted to journals. So that means that in terms of the research integrity checks have also become more challenging. AI can really help with that. There's a flip side to that, which I'll get to. And some of you may have seen or may even use tools such as co-pilots. So if you're in the lab, do whatever research that you're doing, not only can it help with doing some helping you perhaps with a literature review. But the also really cool thing is now the reproducibility checkers. So you can actually, if you're testing something, then you can actually run that through a reproducibility checker, and that will give you some really valuable feedback. However, there are some significant things where AI is hindering the SDGs and research integrity. For the SDGs, bit of an elephant in the room. The SDGs, in terms of the sustainability issues with AI, are not necessarily compatible. I saw some data this week that showed that the amount that the United States is spending on construction of office space is about to be eclipsed by the amounts that the US is spending on data farms for AI. So whilst that's good news that there's less construction for office buildings, so that's concrete, etc., that's good. But not only is the construction, the amount spent on construction of data farms in and of itself perhaps going to have some kind of impact on sustainability, the running of them, the huge amount of energy that they require, is obviously an issue that AI is kind of still grappling with. When we look at research integrity, we'll go back to the point we made earlier, whilst that increase in the number of papers being submitted to journals is being fueled by the ease with which authors are now able to write articles using AI. I'm being very kind of diplomatic here. I think there's obviously good things there. So, for example, if you don't have English as a first language, you can use translation technology through AI that will help you be much more eloquent in what you want to say. There are good things in being able to do that as long as you obviously follow the relative protocols in terms of how you admit the use of AI has been done in your research. But not only have there issues around things like using AI and then not doing the proper checks and then producing fake references and the hallucination problem that we're all aware of, there's a really big issue with the unfortunate and an emerging realization that the publishing industry sees that a lot of articles are not only being written by AI, whether in part or in whole, but are also being reviewed by AI. So I've got a couple of headlines here from recent articles. So from The Conversation, which is many of you will be aware, is a kind of a news site that uses input from academics. There was a report there last month about more than half of new articles on the internet are being written by AI. David mentioned the repository archive earlier. Archive have actually changed in the last couple of weeks their submission policy. Now, archive is a subject-based repository. It mainly includes physics papers, and since it got set up over 20 years ago, it's one of the original repositories that were set up. It has accepted all submissions and done a pretty light check. It doesn't do a peer review, but it does a light check. They've had to change that policy now because they're getting inundated by what they themselves call AI slop, which is the term that's starting to be used for AI generated content. So whether it's more than half, that's obviously quite a scary statistic, but there have been checks done where elements of AI have been identified in that kind of amount of articles. Perhaps more interesting, actually, is a report that came out a couple of weeks ago, and slightly ironically, a conference on artificial intelligence. They released data on all of the reviews that they had received of articles that had been submitted for the conference, and they found that 21% of them were created by AI. So, for a research integrity point of view, AI is kind of is that classic kind of duality, because on the one hand, it's really helping authors write articles and do their research and publish articles, and it can help identify where you have these big problems, which is that AI can essentially makes it very easy, too easy probably, to actually write, submit, and get an article published. So there's some really, really big major conversations that are being had at the moment about, from the publishing side of things, what on earth is it that publishers can do to try and stop this, given that we have this increasingly symbiotic relationship between all of the different, these kind of three different Holy Trinity issues. So in terms of a way forward, and this is just my last slide, I think that AI can help make a paradigm shift in terms of the SDGs. But I think that my own personal view here is that, the SDGs came from the United Nations. And the United Nations is one of the very, very few institutions around the world that has a huge amount of trust in it. And as a result, I think the SDGs can help both the responsible development of AI technology and improve research integrity issues by becoming by using that trust element. Now, I see this happening in three ways. Firstly, there has to be an honest push for greater transparency. And in these things, people always say, yes, there should be more transparency. Politicians always say must be more transparency. Often it's not really in their interest to be transparent. But I think in this instance, it really is an essential ingredient, because both publishers, academic institutions, and sorry, that should say funder and funders, they're all having conversations with each other, and they want each other to be more transparent in order to have much better and more and progress things a lot more easily in terms of all of these kind of three issues. So transparency is in the interests of some of the key players in all of this, and as a result, that needs to happen. In terms of innovation, which is obviously what we're talking about here, and again, there is good news here because, for example, at the conference I'm at now, there's numerous startups, or there's new tools from existing vendors, or indeed there's actually quite a lot of collaboration involved between academic publishers in finding solutions, technological solutions to a lot of these problems that we've seen. There is a bit of an arms race at the moment, particularly in terms of AI and research integrity. I think AI has been moving ahead. I think it obviously had a big head start 3 years ago with ChatGPT coming out. There was a bit of a fight back from publishers and vendors with new solutions. I think AI has probably moved ahead a little bit more again now. We know there needs to be this transparency and this different levels of innovation to happen for us to kind of move forward. And finally, my key point that I want to make here is about what I would call contextualization. So a lot of these startups have got really cool dashboards. They're getting integrated with researcher workflows within institutions. There's a lot of possibility with blockchain technology in the inherent trust element that has. And there are a lot of knowledge tools that have been around for quite a while out there that are now adapting to things. So if we can develop all of those things in a trusted environment, and I would see that the UN with the SDGs performing a really key part of this, then I think that we can be positive about the way forward. But it's easy to say there's a huge amount of work to get us from where we are currently to where we're going to be. And that's the end. If you want to read more about SDGs, AI, and research integrity, then I do write about this on our blog called The Source, or please feel free to reach out to me at Cabbles. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Simon. That was a very sobering look at what parameters need to be engaged so that we get good quality research about AI and SDGs. And that is why we have a dynamic duo from the Emerald Publishing world. And I want to say before, by way of introduction, that Emerald Publishing has a SDG platform that includes several kind of earmarked journals that contribute directly to specific SDGs. And I got to know Emerald because they have a whole responsible management track. And the point of having an editor of a journal and the publisher is to show you how we can get good quality, integrity-filled research on these topics, not just published and adjudicated through a rigorous process, but also the tension is open access. And open access is a challenging business model. But I will let Emerald Publishing take over. Thank you.
Excellent. I will just share my screen. Can everyone see that? Hopefully you can. So I just want to start by saying thank you to David and Jerome and all the team at UHU, at UNU even, just to say thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And so I'm Rebecca Tor. I'm the Publishing Development Manager for Emerald Publishing. And my focus is on sustainable structures and infrastructures. And I'm joined today by Dr. Yantao Yu of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Dr. Yu also serves on the editorial board for a new Emerald title, which is Artificial Intelligence for a Sustainable Built Environment. And we're thrilled to spend some time with you today to discuss how we are harnessing AI to advance sustainable development goals. So it's been a real eye-opener so far in this presentation. So I look forward to sharing more with you in our one. So I would just want to, I'm going to take the first part of the presentation, and I'm going to take you through a brief overview of Emerald so you can see where we're coming from. You can see what our stance is. You can see our focus on real-world impact and SDG alignment. So I'm going to talk about that. Then I will cover three main areas. So open access and global reach, responsible AI use in publishing, and finally, the evolving role of peer review in an AI-driven era. I will then hand over to Dr. Yu, who will discuss how AI is reshaping research disciplines with a focus on construction robotics. So I will go on to the next slide. So our story at Emerald began about 60 years ago. It was a group of management academics from Bradford University in the UK, and they had a vision to champion new ideas that would advance the research and practice of business and management. And back then, this wasn't the sort of thing that anyone was really talking about. It was really novel of its time. Today, you hear it all the time. You know, you talk about impact. That's obvious today, but back then it wasn't. But it's our commitment to that real world impact which became the foundation of Emerald's identity, and it continues to shape our publishing strategy today. And over the decades, Emerald has expanded its portfolio, and we now have over 300 journals, we have more than 2,500 books, and we have over 1,500 case studies. And we cover all different fields, from health and social care to education to engineering. And this breadth reflects Emerald's dedication to nurturing fresh thinking in areas where we feel that research can make a tangible difference. So bear with me, on to the next slide. So in 2021, we wanted to do more. We've always supported, since they came out, the Sustainable Development Goals, but we really wanted to do more to align our content to them. So in 2021, we introduced these 5 interdisciplinary goal areas, we're calling them, and they're all aligned with multiple SDGs. And as you can see on there, David's already mentioned it, but we have responsible management, we've got quality education for all, fairer society, healthier lives, and the newest one is the one that I head up, which is sustainable structures and infrastructures. And all of our content sits within one of these goal areas, and it's headed up by a publishing development manager like myself. And we're also supported by a prominent academic who, my goal advisor, he is at a university in Florida, and he's a dean in the construction department. And so we work hand in hand, work with them really closely, just to make sure that we are focusing on the right types of research and the collaborations that we're involved in. The idea behind our goal approach was to facilitate collaboration across the fields, because as we all know, these siloed single discipline thinking approaches that we had previously, they're just not going to solve any of these complex challenges that our world currently faces. And obviously the SDG approach is also you know, people coming together from different angles and collaborating together. So each goal area helps researchers share work through themed missions, and we also support our journal and our books content, our case studies, with accessible content like blogs, videos, and infographics. We have various campaigns that we run through the year which focus on these really global issues, and we also then encourage debate within the community. So I want to move on to, so you've got an idea of who we are. Now I want to move on to our open access programme. So building on our change, our strategy, our alignment to the SDGs, we wanted to see what we could do further. And really, open access, you know, we need to remove paywalls, we need to remove barriers. So building on our goal strategy, in 2023, we launched a Gold Open Access programme to further support the SDGs. These journals are designed to foster collaboration and accelerate progress on complex global challenges. Academics want their work to influence thinking, shape policy, and drive positive change. And it's open access that can make that possible. So by removing barriers, we ensure that knowledge reaches everyone who needs it. And it's not just those with resources. And it's especially important for AI-driven research. So in this regard, as you can see on screen, we've introduced several new open access titles. We have machine learning and data science and geotechnics, artificial intelligence for a sustainable built environment, as we mentioned, and artificial intelligence in education. And we have a brand new one, which David knows quite a lot about, which is AI and responsible management. That's coming soon. And these journals tackle global issues. They're all aligned to the UN SDGs. So by combining open access with cutting-edge AI research, we're making sure that breakthroughs are shared widely, enabling researchers everywhere to apply these insights and accelerate progress towards a more sustainable future. So I would like to take you through to some of the things that Simon's already touched on. This is going to be a very light touch because I don't have that much time, but I want to look at responsible AI use in publishing. We all know that AI is changing research and publishing, as Simon's outlined quite a few things there, but it brings real benefit, lots of negatives, but real benefits too. It also raises questions around integrity and trust. And at Emerald, the approach that we are coming from is that we believe AI should be used in ways that strengthen scholarly communication, but not undermine it. And that's why our approach is built on these three guiding principles that you can see on screen: transparency, accountability, and responsible use. So for transparency, we want authors to clearly state how AI was used in their research or writing. So it's not about policing, we're not doing that, but it is about clarity. We need to understand how it's being used. Accountability, authors must remain responsible for the content that they submit. So if AI has helped structure an argument, or it's organised references, author must check those outputs and ensure accuracy. And responsible use, AI can support clarity and structure, but it shouldn't replace intellectual work. So whereas copy editing is okay, copywriting is not okay. Obviously, those are the guiding principles. As Simon rightly said, we have to evolve with the times and we have to continuously be up to date. So our policy is deliberately broad because we want authors to use AI confidently while following these principles. But because AI evolves quickly, we're reviewing our guidelines all the time to stay realistic and relevant. And why does it matter? Because responsible AI use supports quality, integrity, and inclusivity in research. All of those underpin the Sustainable Development Goals, and we certainly don't want to be going against what we're actually trying to promote. So it's definitely a work in progress, and I will go on to my almost final slide. I think I'm there. Responsible peer review in an AI-driven era. Just a little bit about peer review. Obviously, Simon already mentioned the amount of peer review that is AI written. Peer review is such an important area. It's the backbone of scholarly publishing, but it's facing this growing pressure. We've got more submissions, global participation, and the need for fairness and transparency. At the same time, we've got AI transforming how we work, And the question is, how do we harness AI to make peer review more rigorous, equitable, and inclusive? So at Emerald, we're actively exploring this, and we've tested AI tools for years to see how they can improve efficiency without compromising integrity. And for example, reviewer recommendation tools analyze manuscripts and suggest experts editors might not know. So in Emerald test, over 60% of AI recommended reviewers were new voices, helping to diversify the pool. AI generated summaries are another tool. They highlight a paper's core novelty, allowing editors to focus on potential rather than language or formatting. And that creates a more of a level playing field. And then evaluation tools, they go further. So generating constructive comments and often defaulting to revised articles rather than reject. So that sort of broadens what good looks like. But equity depends on implementation. And without safeguards, AI can reinforce bias. And that's why we are rigorously testing tools. We're comparing outputs to demographic data. We're training teams to spot biases, and we're monitoring these tools continuously. Looking ahead, most tools today focus on integrity checks, but the future lies in supporting reviewers and authors directly. And we're offering training, we're offering multilingual feedback and providing richer comments. Just launched this week, we're piloting ScholarOne's AI editor assistant across 10 journals to help with manuscript screening. And this is part of our commitment to keep peer review rigorous, fair, and future ready. So I have dabbled through that, but I just want to say thank you for listening. I'll now hand you over to Dr. Yu to dive into how AI is being used to advance sustainability research and SDG impact, particularly with a focus on construction robotics. I just want to say that Dr. Yu serves on the board of AISBE, which we launched just a few months ago. And for the journal, she's also a guest editor of a special issue on human-robot collaboration, and she will discuss that in a bit more detail. Thank you for listening, and I will hand you over to Dr. Yu. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So can you see the screen, right? Yeah, so thank you, Rebecca, for your quick introduction. So hello, I'm Oriental, and I'm currently working as an assistant professor in the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And I'm happy here to be share with you how AI can contribute to workforce sustainability, and with a special focus on construction robotics. So the construction industry plays an important role in the world economy, and it's continued to expand, especially in Hong Kong. But our industry has long been criticized for its poor safety records. And also we are now facing severe challenge caused by labor shortage and aging workforce. So that's why construction robots are urgently needed in our industry. But current robots, most of them can only complete very simple tasks in such tedious and well-organized workplaces. But if we go to construction sites, you can find that the task there can be much more difficult, and also the workplaces is much more like messy and dynamic. So that's why we think human-robot collaboration, where humans like skills and knowledge can be combined with robot strength and speed. So we think it can be considered as a more feasible solution to construction automation. But most the current HRC systems are just the reactive ones in lab. For cobot can real work on construction sites. We hope it could be proactive to make the correct decision timely. But the construction sites are dynamic and task is difficult, so make it extremely challenging for cobots to make the correct decision within a short period of time. So without such proactivity, a cobot on sites can be a killer rather than a helper. Despite all of these challenges, we can still observe that human workers can still collaborate smoothly with each other and can acquire or learn skills from their mentors. So this inspired us to develop a human worker-inspired robotic collaboration intelligence. So basically speaking, we're trying to transfer collaboration skills from cobots from human to cobots regarding perception, learning, reasoning, and manipulation. So in the following few minutes, I will quickly go through the challenges in each of the aspects and our proposed solution. So the first, regarding perception, the first challenge comes from the crowded workplaces on construction sites. So where there are usually frequent visual occlusions. So a natural idea is to rely on additional modality like as shown here. So we select a smart insole because first, it is less intrusive compared with like body-mounted motion sensors. So it is more suitable for on-site construction. And also, it can collect the plantar pressure distribution data, which also reflects human body motion and posture. So we think it could be a good modality for us to use. And the results showing that combining these two modalities, we are able to infer the full body posture of construction workers even under severe occlusion. So this is crucial for robots to reliably understand human motion on construction sites. So another challenge comes from the scarcity of training data for highly diverse objects, especially tools and materials, because construction sites are usually different from one another. So that's why robots have to deal with unseen tools and materials. So to deal with it, we develop a training-free object detection method based on VRM. And the results show that robots are now able to recognize tools and the materials, even the unseen ones, without additional training. So this is crucial for robots to dealing with to work in like new construction sites. After perception, we have learning. So basically, it means how robots can understand the current task states. The challenge lies in loosely constrained and long horizon construction tasks. So here we ask two questions. First, how to extract action primitives from the continuous and the long construction tasks. And the second, what is the optimal granularity for construction task modeling? So to answer this question, we first trying to decompose our construction task following the work breakdown structure in construction management. And also we define state transitions like this so that robots will be understand, okay, which part is the state parts marking the transitions between two primitives. And for the third question, we develop such a multi-granularity prediction framework where we are able to predict the next step in different levels simultaneously. And according to the results, the activity level achieves the best balance between prediction accuracy and the interpretability. So it is selected in the next step as the granularity. And yes, after learning, we comes reasoning. So basically, it means that how a cobots can or how cobots will be able to predict when and what assistance is needed by its human coworker. So the difficulty lies in first the flexible task allocation, and secondly implicit collaboration signals. So here actually we model the problem as predicting one worker's collaboration request by observing two workers' collaboration demonstration. So to dealing with these challenges, we developed such an uncertainty-aware framework for long-term behavior anticipation, where we focus on the prediction of the worker's role, their activity type, the duration, and the progression percentage. And the results show that we are actually able to predict the next 8 or 9 activities together with their correspondence level. Also, we can different roles here as shown in this video demo. And this will allow cobots to have enough time to predict and generate appropriate assistant behavior in the long term. Yes, and we also try to compare the uncertainty-aware strategy with random strategy and the deterministic strategy, and we found that being uncertainty awareness actually achieves the best performance regarding task completion time, number of conflicts, and average robot usage. So finally, the manipulation, which actually grounding all of the above skills. The challenge here are actually there are a lot of challenges, but here we focus on 2. The first one is different embodiments because the skills learned from human body needs to transfer cobots who may have different embodiments from our human body. So here my collaborator actually developed such a strategy where they use LLM as a long-term planner and use human demonstrations as short-term action generator. And combining them, they achieve the best success rate compared to all of the existing approaches. And another problem comes from diversified task settings. So here we are now working on a simulated environments like this for safety and flexible test scenarios for our next work, where we will be trying different reinforced learning strategy for cobots to generate their skills among different test settings and construction workplaces. Yes. So about our all of the strategy, basically we're just trying to work together to contribute new methods for cobot decision making, and make we hope to finally contribute to a safer, smarter, and more efficient human robot collaboration system for construction tasks. So yeah, as Rebecca just mentioned, for this topic, we also have a special issue about human-robot collaboration in construction and built environment. And here are a list of interested topics will be involved in our special issue. And it's edited by me and Professor Zhengbo Zhou from Columbia University. And here are the key deadlines. So if you or your friends might be interested in the special issue, you may scan the QR code here and for more information about the special issue. Yeah, so here are pretty much what we want to share by me and Rebecca. So any questions and comments will be appreciated in the later Q&A session. Yeah, thank you so much.
Dr. Yu and Rebecca, that was a fascinating deep dive. And I can say that if any of you, I don't know if there are any Americans, people in America who have are up for the webinar, but in America, we have a very, unfortunately, robust industry in worker accident lawsuits and compensation, because our regulations are very lax in terms of worker protection. So the idea that your technologies could help mitigate some actual human endangerment, that's what we are talking about getting high quality research into the hands of practitioners to make a difference. So I appreciate the fine granularity of that, and good luck with the journal. So we are now in the question and answer period. Like a game show, I'll toss out some questions. Costa, I don't think Jerome is still on the call because he sent me a note. So do we have a question maybe from someone? You know what? I think we'll just take a question. I would like to get someone else on video that is not the presenter. So would somebody raise their hand or just open their mic and video, and let's have a question, please. Okay. That was pretty quick. And that's Raju?
Yes, thank you so much for taking the question. I've been working in SDG 16 for about 7 years now. My question is, now since the pandemic happened and we have AI, what's the intersection between having trust in the process, the peace process? Like, are there different values associated with the word peace that makes it difficult for different actors to come together? Because I know there's positive peace and there is a certain connotation around positive peace. So just throwing that out there around values and definitions. Thank you so much.
I think you need a weightier and more ponderous question for the group. That is a big one, going right to in my personal SDG cubes. I wonder if any of our wizened panelists would like to address that. I can respond, but anybody? All right, then I will jump right in. Roger, it's very interesting because on the war side of peace, it is now the case that we're worried about AI papers and AI peer review. We should also worry about that in warfare. AI is the single most competitive advantage, if you will. And unfortunately, war evolves with the times, and drone technology in all of the wars and all the surveillance is really what's leading. And Francesco, you would be able to actually back this up. It is now the case that when you have a missile shield on your city to protect yourself, the missiles are fired in defense and they are totally autonomously decided of what gets shot down by AI. The human is not in the loop anymore on the warfare side. Now, to counterbalance that on the AI side, I do not think, and maybe, Rebecca, we need a new journal, that we have really taken to task the peace process. And I can give you one example of the magic of AI and peace. There is I have to look up the city in Europe, a local council, like the municipality, has a very corrupt government. Anti-corruption is one of 16, right? Well, one of the ministers on the cabinet for the governance of this region is an AI, a quasi GAI. They have basically built a political representative from AI, trained it, and the person who introduced it is under a lot of fire because this AI, as the person says, does not have a corrupt uncle that they're trying to give a side deal to. It is using jurisprudence, it is using rules. So the possibility for this is endless. And maybe the next thing is to look at peace institutes at various higher ed and bring our AI for SDG roadshow to them. Oh, great. Another question. Somebody want to pop on video and let's see you. Please don't be shy.
David,
David.
very
Yes.
quickly, just to chime in. We can only take one more question because we're
One
running
more
out of time.
question.
I think Joey has a question.
Oh,
No, sorry, I don't. But I found Nicolas' question quite interesting from the chat. So I'm going to read the question. AI in review, I find particularly interesting. AI works on large amount of training data, and as far as I understand, it tends towards the mean or probability. So how do we deal with the bias toward the global north and potential bias against the innovation that goes against the probability means? And I guess probably exclusion of global south.
Francesca, do you want to take the technical bias aspect of that? Because I know you know a few things in that department.
Yeah. So AI for review, it's a very, very much on a topic right now. And there is a big problem when it comes to bias, as pointed out. And so with the current technologies that we have, that we use, it's really hard to get rid of bias just because, I mean, it's easy to get rid of bias that we know of. It's really hard to get rid of bias that we don't know of. And these are all spread all throughout the web and the data that we use to train these models. So it's pretty much realizing that the data that we feed into these models are biased to begin with. There is a very nice graphic, I think is made by MIT, I don't remember, that shows how similar ChatGPT reasoning is to some ethnicity and how distant it is to other ethnicity, depending basically on how much that ethnicity puts stuff on the internet. So these models are simply statistical reflection of data that's online. And if the data that we put online follows certain bias, then the models themselves are doomed to follow them. So as of now, people is really working towards making sure that there's no bias and there is no hidden, preferences. But solely using ChatGPT-esque models, I think it's not possible to get rid of bias. We need to move towards the new AI paradigm, which is using logics and using standard computer science alongside these new models to enforce some kind of rules or some kind of fairness. This is a pretty much studied field of research in computer science, and it's quite new, but it's very interesting. And neurosymbolic AI, you might have heard the term, is basically what it's trying to do.
Thank you, Francesca. That's great. Jerome, you get the closing 30 seconds.
David, if you could wrap up, actually, maybe we can hear final words, like one sentence from each of our speakers, just so everybody could say something, like one final takeaway that you think our audience the audience want to learn out of this webinar, and then I'll finish up very quickly. Maybe, do you want to start, David?
No, Simon, please.
Sorry for putting
you
you guys on the spot.
That's what's called the hospital pass in the UK. So I think actually I'm just going to go back to the something that was great to hear more of from other people, which is the notion of trust. That maybe that we've lost some trust, but there are ways that we can get it back, and that is the principal thing that we should be focusing
on. Dr. Yu.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I do think AI together with robotics it's actually now changing the construction industry dramatically and very exciting about what will happen in the next few years. But also regarding like some management things, I'm talking about like technical parts today, but actually AI and robotics are also changing the management parts of in the construction industry. But there are like only few studies are currently doing about that. So if anyone is interested in that, feel free to like explore this part. I think it would be quite interesting to explore how AI plays a more important role regarding the management and the policy parts within the construction industry. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Yeah, I mean, there's great opportunities in AI and open access and the impact it can have on the SDGs. But we need to be mindful and we need to be agile. And I think that's the thing. We all need to be agile. We need to be talking to each other and we need to make sure that we are ready to act. If we need to change things, that's fine. But we need to do it as an industry, I think, from a publishing point of view.
Excellent. And Dr. Fabiano.
I just want to say that it's important to realize that AI is a statistical tool, and we need to be aware that we need to use this tool and not be used by the tool. And we need to kind of fight the idea of being lazy and try to go the extra mile ourselves, even when it's not needed, just because as of now, we can't really trust AI as it's based on statistics. And it's very important to study alternatives to this, right? Computer science is already doing this. We're already looking forward. This is already past for us, large language models. And it's really important that we understand that this is not the end. It's just a very nice tool that we need to control and make more ready for the layman, let's say that.
And as a concluding comment to integrate all of the comments, we need to be ahead of and agile and work with, quote, real computer scientists to move this along. And I think we should read more science fiction and literature because we need to see what can happen before it happens. Because once the magic genie, if you will, is out of the bottle, it's impossible to put it back. So ideas for journals, for special issues, for different forms of publishing and scholarly communication, this will be our future in concert with high quality, rigorous AI research and allegiance to the Sustainable Development Goals for the world.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David, and for the excellent moderation, and of course to all of our speakers. I know we are pressed for time, but if you could just give me 2 minutes to share with you about our action group and some of the work that we do, which includes organizing this webinar. I promise I'll finish very quickly. Our action group on the futures of higher education and AI is co-led by us, the United Nations University, and the UNESCO International Institute for Higher Education. We launched this action group at the side event of the UN High-Level Political Forum last year with the mission of exploring how AI is impacting higher education through the lens of sustainability. And this sustainability dimension is often overlooked in discussions about AI. And our goal is to ensure that AI adoption in higher education aligns with the principles of equity, of responsibility, and of course, long-term impact. And through the help of our partners, including David and our speakers across different regions, we've developed a range of knowledge products, including this AI Learning Lab webinar series. We also have a podcast called The AI and Sustainability, where we bring together experts, users, practitioners, even students to share insights on AI's impact on critical global issues. We will share the link for the podcast in the chat below, and stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll invite an expert to answer a rather very controversial topic of, can AI save our planet? Which very exciting episode that we will record, in fact, tomorrow. So I'm really excited for that after this webinar. And we've also just completed a global survey together with UNESCO in Latin America to better understand how universities are actually adopting AI in teaching, in research, and in administration and governance. And the result of this survey will provide as evidence on how AI is being used on campuses worldwide. We're hoping to publish the results by early next year that will provide institutional guidance for the ethical and inclusive adoption of AI in higher education. So if you or your institution is interested in becoming a partner of the Action Group, or share your expertise or highlight the AI initiatives of your institution, feel free to sign up as partner in the link displayed on your screen, or reach out to us through email at hesi.unu@unu.edu. And lastly, we would greatly appreciate if you could spare time to answer a feedback survey. I promise you it will take you less than 30 minutes to finish. Your responses will be very useful for us in selecting which topics to cover in the future webinars. And that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us until the end. But I look forward to meeting you all again at the next AI Learning Lab webinar next year. Thank you very much, and have a pleasant evening from Tokyo. Thank you.